Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Checking for audio. We're not hearing anything.
I think we're ready to go.
Great.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us on the North American Knowledge Team meeting. It's a very important meeting. We're represented by all the continents around the world, except for one frozen one. But other than that, it's important to see what's going on around the world and then try and make heads or tails out of this thing, because each of us has to be able to do this in our own way. And that's the important message that I'm trying to convey. And as such, we will carry on. Thank you. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science. We have been discussing basic transmission. Today's subject is field release. My name is Alexander. I'm from Canada. It's January the 14th, 2024. The Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series continues. We've been talking about basic transmission, and would you believe it? This is the 6th in the series of 6. Yes, we're talking about field release, and we're trying to overcome this donkey hesitancy we keep talking about, because we have to understand that this is the lowest energy state. And although we find that rolling is faster than walking, we still have a lot of jumping and flipping to do. The basic message is that we all want to be released. So please release me and let me go and do what we have intended to do. And that is a very good question. And so when we look for trying to find the answers, Marin Teva Kolikesh helps us with book number 1, The Universal Order of the Creation of Matter. It is quite important for us to not go through life without understanding this, because we are part of the universal order of creation. And book number 2, The Structure of the Light, it's very important for us to understand this, because that's what constitutes everything around us. And then, of course, there's book number 3, which is The Origin of the Universe. And let's face it, that would be also very handy, because we are in the process of doing transmutation preparation sessions. And so beginning in 2024, on every third Friday of the month, we will be doing these sessions. And as it says, it's a preparation. And why do we have to do this? Because for millennia, we have been doing things backwards. And so part of the problem is we have to unlearn what we've learned and relearn what we knew before we got here in the first place. And obviously, the ultimate goal, and we've tried this for 308 weeks in a row, to bring one nation, one planet, and one race together for world peace, because we're all part of the Earth space. This is our planet, regardless of the race, creed, or color. And so we continue, and it's becoming more and more important because we continue to search for outer space without understanding the field release and how it works on the plasma highway to that pie in the sky. And that pie in the sky is not just that little tiny red dot in the bottom right-hand corner, which we call our Earth space, but it's the rest of the universe as well. And so that transcends beyond what we consider to be man's universe. And we just have to look at the bigger scheme of things. And that's what we're trying to do, because there is a plasma highway and we need to get on it, but we're still stuck in the transmission highway. And that's what we're discussing right now. We're discussing the basic transmission, because we want to understand better how this universal embodiment works. And so the question that we have is the speed of light the fastest transmission? And is that true? And as a result, because the universe is so large, does that mean then the faster you go, the bigger you get? And is that true? And so if one is true, the other has to be true. But when we look at the Earth space embodiment, we find that we're in our little tiny perfect bodies. And we are situated on this little tiny perfect world. But there are other embodiments, other worlds, other universes. And what do we know? What do we know about the creation of the universe and how the universe is created? Well, this we know for sure. It exists from energy. And since energy is always in motion, it has to have a charge. So we know which way we're going. And if we're going someplace, then we have to know that all things are working in combination. And so fundamentally, why is book number one book number one? Because the universal order of creation of matters has to bring all these things together in combination. So we have the matter state, the dark matter, and the antimatter. And so these are clearly three different matters. And so here we are in the transition dimension, and we're trying to figure out, well, where did all these matters come from? And where are they going? And how do they react? And how do all these things combine? One moment. The way these things combine, and we've been introduced to the cups of life, because they talk about the physical state and how it manifests into GAN state, because this represents our emotional strength, part of our core space, part of our inner space. And wherever this space is that nebulous point in the universe.
Alex, is your mic closed?
I was closed from the last session, was it?
No, just I think when this background came up, this one here.
Oh, I know why. I accidentally clicked on it. Thanks for bringing that up. So we were looking at the cups of life and the Gans radiant manifestation, and what is key here is that there are different Ganses. There are different quantities of ganses. And what is common is that each of us is different. And so our emotional stability affects this production. But what we notice is that even in this simple cup of life, we have variety. For instance, we have carbon dioxide, calcium, zinc, and copper gas. Two of the most important gases is the water gas and the amino acid gas, fundamental for building. So we were talking about trying to roll along this x-axis transmission. And what is an anomaly here is that we have to be perpendicular to the ground. So we roll along the ground. But we find that if we spin as we roll, so we're still perpendicular to the ground, but if we spin 360 degrees, our diameter of the circle now represents the radius and the circumference, and the relationship still has to do with pi. So we're still trying to figure out how we get this x-axis transmission. So one of the ways we talked about was about sliding along, and we found that in ice hockey, flat pucks slide on a flat ice surface. The key point being that there's less friction on an ice field. And then we introduced curvature, and we found that the hockey players could slap the puck faster, and defensemen could deflect the puck better, and it would deflect into the stands and hit the fans with a spin and increased speed. And so that was ice field release. But we resolved the rolling along anomaly because we found that the input rotation as a car is perpendicular to the motion. And so the output motion is aligned with the rotation of the wheels. But we've got another problem, because if we take that input rotation out, so there is no perpendicular input rotation, the output motion is still aligned with the rotation. And we do this by putting a slope on the ground. So it doesn't seem like there's any input rotation or input motion at all. But if we continue with excessive perpendicular input rotation, instead of going downhill, we go uphill. Once we get to the top of the hill, we find that we completely leave the ground. We're not touching the ground. And so there's less friction on a dirt field. We call this car release. And then, of course, when a dog goes into the water, he gets covered with water. Isn't it interesting how the water binds to the dog? And isn't it interesting how the dog knows how to get rid of the water? Through excessive input rotation. Who taught the dog that? We call this water release. But we understand spark release, right? Because we have to sharpen our tools. And so we like to do that with a grinding wheel. And then, of course, that causes excessive input rotation. And so we see the sparks flying. So now we have a sharp tool. Because the reason for those sparks flying is because the metal was being released. So at some point there was metal binding, and through excessive input rotation, we now had metal release. And so we could form metals or sharpen tools. And if we use those sharp tools, we can apply this to wood. And so the wood, of course, is cellulose binding. And if we apply excessive input rotation and the sharp metal tool, we can have wood release. there's something common, as you see. First of all, you have to have binding energy paths. So these binding energy paths absorb energy in, and more gets absorbed in. And so we call this attraction. And the fundamental thing is that it offers gravitational stability. So if we are going to release energy from a field, then we have to alter this gravitational stability. And so we can do that physically by shaking the water off, carving up our tools, carving up our wooden ornaments. Or we can elevate energy paths. And so with these elevating energy paths, we do emission, and emission goes out. And more emission goes out. We call this repulsion. And so how does it affect gravitational stability? Well, the result is magnetical stability. So if you're having magnetical stability, you must retain the gravitational stability. So that becomes hand in glove. But when we look at the Earth and how it rotates, it has this wobble. And this wobble seems to be a compromise between two rotations, two input rotations. So first of all, we have the vertical polar rotation, north and south pole. So there's the axis, and the rotations goes from east to west. But then we have the magnetical poles, and they're slightly skewed. And so there we have a magnetical gravitational axis. And there's a rotation as well. And so the interaction between these two axes create a wobble in the Earth. And so the wobble is a compromise between the two poles. And of course, as the Earth is rotating, it creates a wobble pie. So in other words, one moment it's wobbling to the right, and next moment it's wobbling to the left. And it does this every day. But also, in that process, it does it seasonally. And despite this daily Earth rotation, and despite this seasonal rotation on an annual basis, and here we are in the new year, which means we've gone around the sun in a complete circle, and we did this wobbling along every day, but we also wobbled along around the sun. And yet, we maintained this stability. So the only way to maintain this stability is through extreme offsetting. And so that has to be present somehow, because we have this other motion speed that we see reflected in our Earth space. We see the ships floating on the water. We see airplanes flying in the sky. We have warplanes who fly even higher in the sky. And of course, they travel faster. And then we have the Peace Dome and the souls traveling through there. And then we have the satellites, and they travel even faster. And so to establish each of these levels of magnetical stability, there has to be a release. So in fact, each on its own level, whether it be a ship or an airplane or a satellite, is all part of satellite release. And which means that would include the souls. And they stay in their orbit until there's some kind of extreme offsetting. But in the meantime, while they are in orbit, there has to be an extreme offsetting because there's a rotation, there's a motion, and there's a speed. And the higher we go, the faster the speed. So when we look at the dynamic plasma stability, we see that there's a plasmatic manifestation. This emanates from the man-space field capture. And then there's a physical materialization, which comes together from the man-space field release. So there's a integral relationship between the field capture and the field release. And these are offsetting. And they afford us a stability. So one of the ways that we have gravitational stability on this planet, so that we can stay on track and maintain that track binding to offset this excessive input rotation. And so in here we see motorcycle racing. And as we come around a curve, the way to maintain gravitational stability is this extreme offsetting. So in other words, leaning into the turn. Because if they don't lean into the turn, then we could get something like we see here with the train release. It's trying to maintain its track binding. And the track turns sharply, which causes excessive input rotation. And if we don't have this extreme offsetting, the train will run off the tracks. But if we can lean into the turn through an extreme offsetting, then we can maintain gravitational stability. So we have two opposites here. We have one single track with gravitational stability and one dual track with magnetical instability. Excuse me. And so this was discovered by Eric Laithwaite. We talked about this before. He was a British electrical engineer, and his technology was buried following a speech in 1974, where he spoke at the Royal Institution. He's known as the father of maglev, but also he was very much involved with understanding gyroscopes. And so we find that there's an extreme gyroscopic offsetting as well. And so this is a characteristic that we have to look at, but not today. We have to understand that there's an extreme gyroscope offsetting, and we know that because we have gravitational stability. In fact, we can see it. We can see it everywhere. When we make concrete poles, we find that there's maglev stability. We have the substrate, say for concrete poles, the concrete being in the magnetical stability range. But there's a hole in the pole. That hole represents gravitational stability. That hole doesn't look very physical. And when we look at the bamboo poles, we say, wait a moment. The concrete poles are assembled through rotation, but they were held together in field capture with a mold. The bamboo poles did not have a mold. How did we achieve this field capture? So the field capture of the skeleton of the pole is magnetically stable, but there's a hole in the pole. And so that's gravitationally stable. But it doesn't look very physical to me. And so when we look at the Earth, we see that it's very stable. But we know that there's a vacuum on the outside, there's a vacuum on the inside, and the range in between is very stable. That's what gives it the MAGRAPH stability. So the emission and absorption of energy into the Earth is the extreme offsetting. So when we look at advanced technology and we see that we have electric cars and hydrogen cars and flying cars and that nuclear connection, UFOs and other satellites, we now come to the conclusion that they're all obsolete. Because as Earth-based beings, we are all composite four-wheelers, and we're trying to maintain our gravitational stability. So the key point here is that advanced technology is advanced. And how do we utilize that? And so with the coming of the wellness centers, we have to do some transmission. Which brings to mind a pain release mantra. And I never understood how it worked. But now with the new wellness centers, we can clearly see that there's a sequence. And so you can recite this mantra to facilitate the pain release for yourself. You say touch. Touch what? Touch the wound. Touch the source of the pain. We don't want to touch it because it's painful. So don't touch it with your finger. Don't touch it with your hand. Touch it with your soul. Tell it to heal. Heal the wound. Who you tell? Tell your soul. Tell your soul to tell the wound to heal. Soothe the wound. Tell the soul to soothe the wound. Isn't that what you want? To release the pain? So relax the wound. Why do you have to relax the wound? Because the pain is the binding. So relax the binding. Less binding, less pain. Facilitate the healing and the soothing and the relaxing. Release the binding energy. That binding energy is causing the pain. So release the pain. Release the binding energy. Tell the soul to release it. Is the soul holding it back? Or is the soul of the body holding it back? Or is it your physicality that is doing the binding? Regardless, tell the soul, release the binding energy. Now that you've released that energy, retrieve the beneficial energy. Retrieve the energy that you need to heal the wound that you've been trying to soothe and relax, the one that you touched in the first place, and release the pain. You may have to stop and tell yourself this, or you may become skillful and do this with a habit to physically tell yourself and remind yourself. And you know this is true because sometimes you get hurt and you don't know what you did, and the hurt goes away. And maybe you didn't use this pain release mantra. Maybe the soul did it automatically because the soul knows what to do. But as we go through the physical state, we tend to forget. We tend to become dysfunctional, disconnected. And so the pain release mantra can help us do this. And what pain are we discussing? Well, when we're looking at the field capture, we find that the x-axis transmission is parallel to the ground. And so that becomes the first dimension. But in order to move, we have to have a y-axis transmission perpendicular to the ground. And so in fact, that becomes part of the same dimension. And because we know that is true, because when you look at the difference in position, it's still part of the transmission. And it's still part of the field capture. But how do we go from here to there? Well, maybe we're just spinning along. And we know that that is true because we can see it. Our Earth is spinning, and it is moving along. And it doesn't have any apparent extreme input rotation. But it must have some extreme offsetting. And we know there's a difference in the position because we have day and night, and we have the changing of the seasons. And this happens year after year. And so when we're talking about field release, some of us have this one-track mentality. It creates a mental binding. And maybe we require an excessive emotional input. And then we require this extreme offsetting. And so you create an idea. And you release that idea. That becomes part of the field release. But you're not left with a hole in your head. It is a co-creation. And another excessive emotional input, you may have a wish. You may display courage. And you may display love. But you won't be left with a hole in your heart. Unless you allow it. Because this is all part of co-creation. So the field release becomes part of co-creation. And so we understand better our fans that have this Gans binding. And with excessive input rotation, it offers extreme offsetting. And it creates a field release that gives us plasma stability. Different from the physical stability. So this we understand now is the difference in the matter plasma dimensions, where the physical matter state is gravitational and part of the feedback. and the plasmatic matter state is magnetical part of the feeding. And we see the man's dilemma. We're feedback dominant. And when we look at the original discussion of energy and motion, and we have negative and positive charges where the negative gives and the positive takes, and we can see that the energy can be flowing or binding. We're talking about transmission. In order to have this transmission, we've seen that the release of the binding energy precedes the retrieval of the beneficial energy, which means that the field release precedes the field capture, which means the giving precedes the taking, which means the emission precedes the absorption, which means the plasma dominates and precedes the physical dominance. We now have choices. It's beyond November the 11th of 2023. And it's time to exercise these choices and enjoy the benefits of the beneficial energy that comes from outer space, comes to our earth space through our inner space. And so we have 10 years of knowledge seekers workshops, 52 Thursdays every year for 520 Thursdays in a row, bringing together greater oneness that transcends the limitations of nuclear science. Hats off to Mr. Marin Tavakoli-Kesh and Rick Crammond, the host of these sessions. This is the Kesh Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science, welcoming all the beautiful knowledge seekers. There's a World Peace Treaty. Sign it. Sign it with your heart. Sign it with your soul. Sign it with extreme emotional offsetting. Because spacemen, snowbirds, and sports fans can find heaven through the field transmission of perpendicular motion with the guidance and nearness of perpendicular rotation. So we understand that the field release of the binding forces of field capture is foundational for transmission. Plasma science needs to continue to be delivered daily in exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new outer space age. Not only is this the end of the lesson, it's the end of the basic transmission series. So thank you for allowing me to present, and I hope you enjoy this trip.
Hello?
You're on.
The teaching has gotten shorter, Alex. Did they cut your pay or something? And so it's being reflected in your teaching?
Well,
Hopefully
we-
you're still
yes.
getting the same pay.
We have yes, yes, I have. We have spent a lot of time setting up foundation, but we really have to discriminate between being physically dominant and being plasma dominant. That has become the tripping point, if you will. That's the way I see it, because we've tried to understand the different dimensions. So the dimension that we're talking about is the basic transmission. And this becomes very, very important because all of a sudden we can do remote feeding, remote healing, remote communication. How do we do that? These are all forms of transmission. And these forms of transmission are unlike any of the forms of transmission that we have grown up with in this present era. So, yeah, we like to drive our fast motorcycles, and we like to spin our lathes, sharpen our tools. But the tool that really needs sharpening and being engaged is the soul of physicality and its interaction with our soul. Because that's the transmission that matters.
You were talking about field release, and I was in pain release. I was thinking about the pain pen. Does that work in the same manner as releasing fields, or is this a different process when we use a pain pen?
So if you were clairvoyant,
Yeah. Say again, please.
if you were clairvoyant,
Clairvoyant. Okay.
you would be able to see the aura. And so the aura kind of flows around, and you see the background of this picture, you see a plasmatic field.
Mm-hmm.
You see the radiance going around the inner space. So that's what your aura is doing. So your aura is not in the physical dimension in that regard. But because if you're clairvoyant and so you can see the colors, that means actually that the aura is part of the physical domain. But most of us can't see the aura. So the aura is part of the physical domain and we can't see it. Isn't that strange? And so when you find that someone who is clairvoyant and they can see the aura, what do they see? They will actually see a binding. And that binding will be right over the physical area where the pain sits. So why is it bound up? And if you ever try to unravel a piece of string, sometimes even there isn't a knot, it still gets bound up. And the more you pull, the more it binds. So how do you do this? How do you unravel the binding? So first of all, you have to address it. Dear binding, let me soothe you. Let me try and massage the binding out. So please relax. And once it relaxes, you'll find that the binding will release. And then you just have to let it go. And once that binding is gone, and all the subsequent energy that binding has drawn in through its gravitational conformity, now you can release that. In the process of releasing, and now you can retrieve what you need. So
Yeah.
that answers your question on that regard, but I have more to add, but please go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I'm just wondering, is the pain pen working in a different way than this? If we're talking about releasing pain, is the pain pen doing that, or is it tying up the signal, or is it balancing the area? I'm not really clear on that. Maybe you could share your understanding. Misty says some that see auras don't have to be physically present to tell the colors or area.
Right. So I thought I did answer your question. The pain pen releases the binding.
So why, if I had heard, and I think it was explained, about if another person applies the pain pen, it actually could work better if they put it in their right hand? This is what I had heard. Again, I have to be careful about what Daniel told us, but I think that was part of the teachings at one time. That if someone else held the pain pen, it actually worked better.
Okay, so you have to look at two things now.
Okay.
First, person has more mass than a pen.
A what?
A person has more mass than a pen,
Okay.
right? The pen doesn't hold the man holds the pen.
Right,
If
but okay.
if it's the right hand is the giver, the left hand is the taker. What is that person who's holding the pain pen giving? If that person is giving pain, then you will be absorbing that pain. And this is one of the problems that healers have. You've heard of healers who lay hands.
Oh, yeah. Done it myself.
The problem for them is that sometimes they let their guard down and they absorb the field that the, shall we say, the client releases.
Okay.
All right. So now that field is bound within the healer. And then that healer can then in turn transfer that energy to someone else. So a highly skilled healer will put up a barrier and not absorb that release. Which brings me to the second point that I wanted to draw. And that is, in the field release and the nature of the field release, in order for you to maintain a maggrav stability, you have to have an emission, and that facilitates the absorption. What is it that you emit? And so there are two things. One, you emit things that you don't want or don't need. And two, you emit things that you do want. But how does that work? Because you have to exchange that energy with another maggrav field. So that which you want to emit, which you don't want, you want to send that to somewhere where it would not be detrimental. So when you talk about the pain pen, that will extract the energy from the pain source. So in the process of extracting that energy, that binding energy, it has now taken it away because the pain pen is a weaker state. The higher energy feeds the lower energy. So by creating an extremely small gravitational field, it attracts the magnetical emission, which we call pain. Now, the other thing that you do want to emit is you want to emit the understanding of peace and prosperity on this planet. You don't need to emit that to yourself, because that is the essence of who you are. So now you emit that as part of your emotion, or you emit that as part of your mental state, and you encourage that. And how do you do that? Because that becomes the seed for the growth of the new field. The seed is obviously smaller than you, as the seed of the plant is smaller. You know, pumpkin seed is much smaller than a pumpkin. The watermelon seed is smaller than a watermelon, right? So this is what you're setting up. And now you are emitting what you want. But you don't want it for yourself. You want it on behalf of someone else. And this is the key. So that someone else can benefit from that which you have given. And in the process, the combination of the two, from your field release to the other person's field capture, creates a much stronger MAGRAF field. How we doing?
It sounds excellent. If I could only understand it.
Magnetical gravitational interaction. One needs the other. And you have a choice. What do you want to breed? So do you want to go around and say, oh, I have all this pain. Would you like my pain? I will be gladly give it to you. And everybody's going around, no thanks, nah.
I have enough to share with everyone.
Yes. That's right. Okay, so you admit what you want, and this is the whole point. So if you see someone who is spreading, terror, that's what they will get. They are spreading the seeds of terror.
Very nice. I see Alenka has her microphone open. I'm not sure if that's inadvertent or she wanted to share something. It could be inadvertent. I'll just mute it. Alenka? Okay, no problem.
Alenka is carrying on her shoulders the entire Spanish community today.
Good. Now, when you say, or let me just open it up to the participants, would someone like to bring in a question or share something? Again, no one's critical here. We're all going to listen to what you have to share, because I heard somebody say something very interesting this week, that they said everyone has knowledge, every single person has knowledge that I don't have. It may be, oh, I think Alenka opened her mic up again, so.
Yes, finally I could.
Could you come a little closer, please?
Okay, just a moment.
Right. As I was saying, that every
Yes.
person has knowledge that I don't have. So I need to respect that and realize that I don't carry all the knowledge. Many people have different knowledges that I don't have. So being on this soul level where we're all equal, we can feel free to share our knowledge with the other ones, because a lot of people
Yes.
don't have the knowledge you have. And
Yes.
so it's valuable. Yes, Alenka, please.
Yes, my daughter can not only see the aura, but she can read. The aura has all the information of your body, of your mind, of your and some of your soul. So it is not only physical, but it is physical because it can be seen, it can be felt also, but it also has a part that is only energetic. And she can read, for example, how old are you, what are your thoughts, how do you feel, if you're lying, not lying, if you're saying the truth. She can read a lot of information in the aura of a person. But she cannot just see everything of just openly from everybody. She has to concentrate.
Well, that was very nice for a mother to share this knowledge with her daughter.
Yes. Well, no, I didn't teach her. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought you were going to say, I taught her how to read the auras. Okay.
No. She brought it with. It was something that she brought with her birth, from her birth. I didn't know that she could see, and she thought that everybody saw what she was seeing. But only when she was about 16 or 15, somewhere around that time, I realized, and she said that if that was the aura, she could see, and that she thought that everybody could see it.
I heard a very similar story to that. There were a couple called the Warrens, and they used to go around and sort of check in on spirits or people having trouble. And they were very devout Catholics and everything. But Mrs. Warren told a story about when she was in Catholic school, how she could see the auras around different people. And she thought the same thing, that everyone else could see the auras. And when she explained it to the nun, I guess the nun got quite strict with her and said, don't ever talk about that again.
Yes.
She had thought that everyone, she thought, she didn't think she was unique. She thought everyone else could see the auras, but they couldn't. Just what you're saying.
Yes. Yes, that's what happened with Catherine also. And no, I think that she was about 17 years old. She was out of school, of high school already, because she thought that everybody could see the same thing. And that was a discovery when I talked that I was learning about seeing the aura.
And maybe
So she said,
yeah, I was thinking maybe we will develop certain glasses or systems where we could kind of see that in a way.
we can develop. There are some ways that you can train your eyes to not focus. You have to see as in a panoramic way, not focused on a determined point, but seeing all around you, the 180 degrees around.
Right. That Kirlian photography definitely confirms that. Those cameras are rather expensive. But how did she figure out what the different energies or colors meant in a way? Or
that was the knowledge that she brought with her. Yes, she knows. She can see what the person can expect in the near future also. That and maybe sometimes she can see when the person is going to die also. And she doesn't need to be seeing the person. She doesn't have to be present. She can do it through a photograph, or through a video. And sometimes she can also feel the aura, even if she's not seeing the person, but just talking to her through the phone.
Well, I know Mr. Kesh said in the future, or once we understand it, you could actually read your lover's mind, your husband's mind, your wife's mind.
That's right.
But he said you may not want to do that.
That's what happens with her. She doesn't like to do it with the closer persons around her. For example, she won't read my aura. Though I have asked her, she refuses to do it.
Okay. I thought the auras were Alex, maybe you can help, but I thought the auras were sort of energies that you were releasing. In other words, we all interact with the environment and we release and we gather energies, but isn't the aura the energies that are being released, or is it like a flashlight shining from inside you and others? It penetrates the skin in a way and you can see that. I've never worked with auras per se, but I know that Kirlian photography definitely shows the existence, presence of it. Even with the Gans water, they've done that. We've seen some of these high-powered sort of night vision or advanced night vision that are put on helicopters and things, and where they took it to certain events. I think one of the knowledge seekers did that. Might have been in Romania or other places where they could actually see, and we have pictures of it, where they could see the energies of the Ganses versus the plasma water and the rest of it. I'm sure someone remembers that teaching or those pictures that were shared at one time. But yeah, that's amazing that we all have these energy fields around us. Yeah.
There is a camera. It is called Kirlian.
Yes.
That can take photos of the aura.
And I think our soul is obviously, Mr. Kesh said, the best sensing device we have. Our skin, our soul. So it does give us some certain messages sometime, again, without even being there in a way. It's a beautiful scout, and it's something that we need to learn to use a little bit more, or a lot more. But she came with the package, huh?
Yes, yes. She is what's called an indigo. Her aura is indigo.
What does that mean?
Indigo color is something like
Okay.
a sort of blue. One kind of blue.
I'll answer your question, Mark, by asking Alenka a question.
Go right ahead. But come on in, everyone. The water's fine. Alenka's
Well, as
splashing,
much
and
as I can.
Alex is enjoying too.
Well, I have
Yes.
a funny story, and I want to find out if Alenka has a granddaughter or a grandchild.
Yes, I have. I have three,
Oh,
four granddaughters.
so the daughter with the aura, is she a mother?
Yes, yes. And her child can heal with her hands, and
The
and she
aura,
can see in dreams what's going to happen sometimes if it affects her.
can she see the aura of the children?
You know, I haven't. I don't know. I have never thought about that, and I haven't asked her. Maybe she
Well,
can. I don't know.
thing because she's refusing to look at your aura, and I understand that.
Yes.
Funny story I wanted to tell you about is that I had a friend of mine who taught me about auras, and
Mm-hmm.
getting very frustrated because his family knew that he could see auras. And
Yeah.
the thing, what is first of all instructive, is that the color of the aura can change based on the emotional interaction of the person.
That's right.
So he could tell when someone was lying.
Yes, that's right. The aura is continuously changing.
What he could tell when someone was flying, you said, Alex?
No, no, lying,
Oh,
lying,
lying. Okay.
telling fibs.
Gotcha.
So
Mm-hmm. Yes, they can.
this was very embarrassing when he was at an aura. When there was a gentleman who was, describing his techniques of using auras, and he could
Mm-hmm.
see that the speaker was lying and making up stories. But anyway, that's not the story I wanted to tell you. But the story was that his daughter would frustrate him because she would lie on purpose.
Oh.
The reason that she would lie on purpose is she knew that it would frustrate him. That is hilarious, isn't it?
Sure. She did it on purpose to hurt him.
On purpose, yes. Oh, you can read the aura? Well, there. Ask me a question.
Yes. No, I could not read the aura. I was learning how to see the aura, but not how to read it. That's something more deeper in knowledge.
Well,
I cannot read.
yeah, but the one thing we all know for sure at that meeting, and you tell me if I'm correct, you
Yes.
wouldn't be here if your daughter could see malicious intent in the auras of the panelists.
If I could see, if she could see,
We couldn't really hear you clearly, Alex.
yes.
I'll try it again. So
Okay.
if your daughter could see the aura of the panelists on this meeting, and
Yes.
if she saw intent, I
Well,
submit you
If she
wouldn't be
saw, you went out again, Alex. If she saw what?
malicious intent.
Okay.
mm-hmm. Yes, she could see. If, for
Yeah.
example, if you ask her, look, what couldn't you see the aura of such and such a person?
I'm submitting to you that you would not be at this meeting if she could see auras of malicious intent to all the people who are at this meeting.
Oh, why? Because, well, first of all, she would not be just out of the blue, like you see the face of everybody. She would not be seeing the aura of all the people. She would have to focus on someone to be able to see the information in the aura.
Okay, so she is being selective.
Yes, that's right. It's not like, well, probably when she was a little girl, she could see everybody's aura just like that. Because sometimes she would simply see some point and she was out of this world, seeing other things. But at this point, she has trained herself not to just simply see a person and see the aura. Then if she wants to see the information in that person, then she has to concentrate and see. I don't know, how could I say, she uses her eyes in a different way than when we try to see something. It's sometimes she looks as if she was, how do you call those people that have their eyes focusing in the center of
The cross
their
eye?
nose, for example?
The
Huh?
cross eye?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Oh.
Sometimes she has to cross her eyes to see the aura. And sometimes she simply sees in a panoramic way.
Does she feel self-conscious that she has this, let's call it talent?
No, not at all.
Because sometimes that's an inhibiting factor, isn't it? You know, you're very good at something and then you just don't want to show it.
What happens is that when we discovered that she could see this when she was about 17 or 18 years old. So during all her infancy, she had no, how could I say, she was not put against her this difference because she didn't think that that she was different. So and when she discovered it, then she had to go to study her, how to say, in grade school. And then when she returned, there was many things happened that she decided to, because I was part of a cooperative that was promoting the integrative medicine. Then I brought her into the cooperative so that she could help some people that had problems and she could see their problems in their aura. So she started working on that, and then she didn't continue with her studies because she felt that that was what she should do.
And it's stayed with her. She hasn't lost it.
No, she hasn't lost it. So she helps, for example, she gives counseling to some companies, to some business, on what to buy, what not to buy, and she also gives coaching, life coaching.
What is the opinion of her husband?
No, she's not married. She had she couldn't have any babies because she had some problems with her uterus, and she had a boyfriend, and they went to Sedona, Arizona, and it seems that she got pregnant there. and on their way back, they broke up, and she came back to Nicaragua, Honduras. At the time, I was living in Honduras, and she didn't know that she was pregnant until 4 months afterwards. So it was a great surprise. Her boyfriend didn't think that it was his, so the girl was born without her being married. So she has her last name. So for us, it was like a miracle for her to have this baby. She's a little girl. Now she's 9 years old.
Did she, so I would assume then at that point that she didn't understand the skill with respect to the aura? Would
Of
she,
course, no, she didn't. No.
she wouldn't have made the mistake, right?
Huh? She
She
was
wouldn't,
what?
she wouldn't have,
Oh, because, well, she really, really, really desired a baby.
my
That's
God.
when, maybe because she had been told that she could not have any babies. That's why maybe it was something like a great desire for her.
Oh my God, this is a great story. So, Alenka, thank you so much. I know how difficult it is for you to relate this, but you know, what you've talked about is so profound.
Yes, I know. And so she has her baby. She manifested her.
What a story.
And she is really very special because she is pure love. She can feel when she is nearby to someone, whether that person is in great need of love. And so she goes and hugs the person. And then she tells me, oh, Grandma, this person needed that hug. She can feel the the emotions of the persons that are close to her or walking by also.
How does your
Sometimes she,
daughter feel about the Kesh knowledge? Does it
excuse me?
fit? Does your daughter's understanding of this plasma technology fit within her?
No, she doesn't want to know about the plasma. But my granddaughter does, and she has used it, and she has been amazed at the results. But my daughter, no. I
Well,
think that maybe she feels something like competition. I think so.
and I think we all have a lot of capabilities that we'll be discovering.
We all have the
Yes.
capabilities. We simply, sometimes we, how do you say, you
Deny?
deny, that's right. You deny that you are capable of doing those things. Sometimes it's the education in which you have been brought up. For example, in some religions, they consider those things like
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
like well, in the first place, not, of course it is not normal because not everybody develops those abilities, but sometimes they even consider them as if they are diabolic or
Right.
satanic.
They're working with Diablo.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
So they don't understand what happens. I think that it is that we have many programs in our as we say, as we would say, as a computer, configured in our being, but we don't develop them. But there are many things that we could do if we would in the first place develop it, and then in the second place have a higher vibration, because the things that the lower vibrations, the denser ones, are the ones that are common to our physicality, and we have more programs that are configured in our being, but we don't open them and use them. But we could, if we knew all the things that we can do,
Right.
we would be able to expand our consciousness.
Mhm. Agree
And
100%. But when we hear others saying you're crazy, you shouldn't mess with that. This is something,
yes, that's what happens
they turn
exactly.
us away from it. We want to be like them, so we say, okay, I'll push that aside now. That's something I have, but I don't understand it, and they're telling me that's nothing you should be entertaining. And so
Yes,
imagine if we had a world like with what the knowledge seekers are going to do about teaching the children the science and things from a very early age. I think they'll make huge progress in it.
yes, that's right. But we try to cover it up because that's what we've been taught,
Yes, yes.
that that is not normal, and that you're going to be
Hmm.
told that you're crazy or something like that. I've seen many cases that the parents um, have tried to have those children to hide those
Correct.
differences. Hmm.
Yep.
And some of those children develop some illnesses due to the fact that the parents are forcing them against
Yeah.
their natural being. So it is, we could really develop much more than we do.
Agree. Agree. That's the abuse of us by these certain structures.
Yes, but it
Like,
is important
I agree.
that if you want to develop those abilities, to vibrate in a higher frequency.
Is your daughter a humble person?
No,
No,
I tell her that she's a megalomaniac.
but she does have this ability.
I think so. She thinks that she can do everything. And well, and she has achieved some things that we thought would be impossible, helping others.
Mm. And can she see it out of what we call inanimate objects? Like if I was going to buy a car and I had her with me, would she say, no, this car is going to have problems? I sense it. I
Yes,
can see. She can do that.
yes, yes, she can do that. She
Alex, on
has
your
help
next sports car, you know who to call.
because she says that the car also has a vibration,
Mm,
and that the energies of the previous owners would
right.
probably be there.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. I think, as he said, we're going to travel to places and bring back the stories of what we've seen and experienced there. So we're going to have a
Yes,
lot of time to tell our experiences, I think, in the future. And I think some of those are going to be very fantastic, to the point
oh
where
yes,
even the knowledge seekers would almost have a little bit of doubt about it, but hopefully not too much.
that's right.
Oh, that's great.
Well, that's just a small part of what we can
Hmm.
do
Hmm. I
as
agree.
humans.
I agree. Anyone else want to come in? Or is there more you'd like to share, Alenka, on this?
Well, I think that's enough for the moment.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very, very much, Alenka.
Thank you.
So Alex, when you say the matter state is the lowest energy state, what about the other lower energies like pico and the rest of it? Alenka, I'm just going to mute you. Aren't there lower energy states than the matter state? If we were to look at it, I know Mr. Kesh said he'll get into teaching about these in the future time, but, and I know the creator starts with very low, weaker fields. So would there be lower energy states than the matter state? I think yes, but I'm just asking you for what you're thinking about that.
I need to clarify your question a little bit, first of all, because all the states are matter state.
Okay.
The physical state and the plasmatic state are all matter states. And that's where part of the confusion comes in. So the physical state is also a plasma state. It is the lowest energy state of all the plasma states. This is why I'm trying to differentiate.
Okay, so even if it's pico, it's still matter state, lower energy.
Right.
Okay,
It's still part of the physical matter state.
got it. Got it. Would you consider nano in that, or is that a different dimension? Nano.
Nano is in a physical state. Because you have
Okay.
You can nanocoat a copper wire, right? So that's in the physical state. The sp3 is a diamond in the nanocoating state, and so that's a physicality. This is the whole point that everybody's missing, except because it's so highly gravitational, it has created a special kind of transmission. And that transmission is in the physicality. But what we have to understand is that the physical state is a byproduct. So therefore, the transmission in the physical state is also a byproduct. Everyone's missing this. This is the inertia field. So if we become physically dominant, we are inertia dominant. So this past discussion that we've had with Alenka, the aura is a physical materialization of the emotional energy coming from the soul of physicality. The aura is a product of the soul of physicality and its interaction with the environment. Because the soul of physicality and the interaction with the environment creates the manifestation of the physicality. So the physicality of the body and the emission of the aura are both in the physical state. It's just that the aura is of a higher frequency than the physical frequency. So when you look at the periodic table of elements and you find that hydrogen is number one, so it is in the physical state, but it is of a higher energy. It's more magnetical. When you look at something that is like uranium, it has more mass, it is more gravitational. So it is binding more energy. So the binding of the energy is gravitational. The flowing of the energy is magnetical. The point being, though, that you can only go down so far and you can no longer contain that. And then it squirts out. And it can't squirt out physically because the physical energy is binding. So if it squirts out, it's no longer bound. It flips from gravitational to magnetical. This is where you have the shift from transmission to transition.
Could I share the screen for a moment?
By all means,
Okay, just gonna do a couple things here. And this is what I was talking about a little farther down. Now the soul of the man is ready, and this transition will not take long, because once you are enlightened, even ayatollahs and popes will become enlightened and put the fallacies created by them on the table and walk away. From the robes they wore to, in a way, fools will accept any more leadership and leading their souls. Man will understand the totality of the creation, and with this it will bring peace. The size of the land, the color of the body, and the rest will have no more meaning, as our soul is colorless and nationless, as it belongs and is connected to its creator. I made the man in the image of myself. In effect, is the true essence of the image of the soul of the man, which reflects and is very similar to soul of the creator, but in essence in a different amount and size and the strength within it. And here's what you were talking about: containment needs no containment and has no end and no beginning. Anyone want to comment on that? But in essence, in a different amount and size and the strength within it. So you're really is that what they say, Alex? A chip off the old block? But just in a different size and strength and amount of.
well,
Maybe this is part of the maturing process.
the
you
chip
reach-
off
Go ahead,
block
sorry.
is of the same nature. The chip off the old block is like the seed of the plant.
Mhm.
In fact, one of the ways in propagation is through grafting. So, you even bypass the whole seed process. You can take a fresh branch and graft it onto an existing stalk, and it will grow. And there are reasons for this, okay? So that gets very complex, but so it has to do with the energy exchange and the sensitivity of the materials that are involved. So if it's extremely gravitational, then that ability will be curtailed. But if it's magnetical, then so for instance, stem cells would be considered magnetical.
This is the other part I wanted to bring, where Mr. Kesh said, I used to negotiate between British government and Russian satellite countries and all sorts of things, running between Downing Street and different capitals and trying to keep the Eastern Bloc opened up and hold on to it. And I see the same situation now. Even the big powers, we have to bring them to be a player. Otherwise, it'll become a mayhem. And when I explain to the other world leaders why I do it and the way it has to be done, they say, you planned everything. You're planning to start ruling this planet. I said, no, I give the freedom for people to rule themselves. And it has to be correct. To get the Americans to find out that they're lost in Ukraine, they're losing in Palestine, and then they go in one direction, trying to force their superiority in a different way with other wars, or join us to work with us, that there is no superiority. We are all superior. This is one of the biggest jobs now we have in knowledge seekers, is battling with governments at the moment. You have to understand, one of the biggest nations on this planet getting the second humiliation that actually took, they're trying to stop the humiliation in Gaza. They've taken over what you call Israeli army. Now the Israeli army is working directly on the instruction of the White House. They have bypassed what you call Netanyahu. You will see, you will understand. And there's a second defeat for them after Ukraine, when Russia, now we don't hear much about Ukraine because it was so big. Now they found out they sold, they did. Now we have to find accommodation that America doesn't feel humiliated again. So we have to find a place of accommodation for them to be accommodated, to be part of the game. And of course, earlier on, he said the two biggest governments, I think he said. So doesn't this sound like the Americans are being brought in, or they've had a taste or an interaction with some of this plasma technology, and that they're being brought in, and Mr. Kesh is trying to keep them from being humiliated another time in this whole process? Alex, is that what it
Well,
seems
you really
like
want
that to me, that America is on board now, or coming on board, let's say. They're walking up the gangplank in a way, getting on
okay.
this plasma ship.
As a Canadian,
Hmm?
as a Canadian, I'm proud to be Canadian. Okay. You hear me?
Yes, can you start again? I heard in Canada, or I'm a Canadian. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a Canadian, and I'm very proud to be a Canadian. And I'm also proud to be a neighbor of the Americans. In fact, Canadians are quite envious of Americans because America is not a democracy, it's a republic. So it is, you know, the last bastion of hope for humanity. And Americans are very patriotic. And Americans have a strong feeling and a strong love for their country. We feel that. You know, for some of us, you know, it extends into what we call jingoism, which, you know, so they become extreme in their Americanism. Okay, but the thing is that they have a passion for America. So I would like to answer your question this way. First of all, there's a lot of Canadians and a lot of Americans who are emigrating to Costa Rica. And there's a lot of immigrants coming through the southern border of the United States. And I question, first of all, is they are traveling past Costa Rica. I don't understand why they don't find Costa Rica so attractive. But I don't want an answer to that question. What I want to say is this. We are of the belief that these people are coming into America to subvert our society. And maybe on the surface, this is the intention. But if you look at everyone who's come here since Christopher Columbus and seen the mistake that Christopher Columbus made, he came to America, discovered paradise, and ruined it. And now has actually brought his own demise as well, because he's one of the only people in our history who's been convicted and tried of incompetence. You can see that the incompetence that is extensive around this world is not, reprimanded enough. But the point being is that we are all immigrants, except those who were here before us. So Christopher Columbus didn't discover America. He discovered what other people already knew. It was his discovery to himself. So all of us who have come here have come for the express purpose of contributing to this great land. We came as refugees. We came from World War II. We came to contribute. And we did. Because we brought peace and prosperity, because we knew about war. We knew what it meant, and we knew what it brought, which wasn't very much. And so we didn't want to bring that. We brought more. And so I submit to you that all of these immigrants who are now coming into America will be singing God Bless America and will become contributing citizens to this country, and this country will be stronger than ever because we will be assisting their souls, but their souls have already known that, you know, America is the promised land, and they will come here and they will contribute, because even a dog does not make a mess in its own cage. Thanks, Mark.
Right, as Mr. Kesh is saying here, that, you know, we're being embarrassed and losing face, and this is something we are working extensively with 2-3 governments to bring about, to bring Americans into play. So I think I see it about to appear, Alex, as the Americans are brought into collaboration with the Chinese, perhaps the Russians and some others. I don't know the extent of it, but this is one of the major linchpins, I think, that can go one way or another. And of course, if we go the opposite way, it's not going to be fun for us. And hopefully the Americans have started to listen. We know they know about it. As Mr. Kesh said, the Iranians are flying craft over this country every day, but our systems, our radar systems, don't have the ability to detect it. So I think, and they've seen what happened with a couple of other demonstrations in certain waters and the rest of it. So hopefully someone is listening deep within the government to bring about to bring the Americans into this collaboration, and then working on the shared future with the Chinese for all of the governments, and then that merging into the one planet, one nation, one race. So I think we're very close. We've been close before, but this may be one of the final pushes. That,
well, Americans are not belligerent. Americans are patriotic.
right, it's just to have the government announce it. This is what we want, the collaboration and cooperation between the major powers, that we can all benefit from this, rather than starting another war to show how much power we have or don't have. So this is a beautiful phase that we're going through now, even though, as Mr. Kesh said, a few souls had to suffer. It seems like more than a few to me, but he's used to dealing on those bigger numbers.
Well, you wouldn't be leading these sessions, Mark, if you weren't a patriot. That's a fact.
Okay.
So I thank you.
Well, thank all of us. We're all bringing the change. Anyone else want to join the discussion before we bring the meeting to a close?
Hello, Mark.
Yes, Jefferson, hello.
Hello. Hello, Alex. Hello, everybody. I'd like just before finishing, that can take 1 minute or two to give our best energy to Diane. That is, as I understood, she is in need. We can just give it to her, our best energy, and she can take whatever she wants, just a few seconds. And I would like also say thank you to Alenka for bringing this view about the aura. And if you all or we all have the opportunity to read book number 3, where Mr. Kesh explained in a very direct way that we cannot reproduce here due to the copyrights of the books. And it explains a lot about the way the magnetosphere is created in the whole universe in different levels of strength. And the aura basically is the connection through the soul, the cell, from the body, physicality, the emotion, the feelings, and the soul. Even the soul of creator has his aura or his magnetosphere due to the interaction of fields between gravitational and magnetic, and the mass, that difference of the mass that creates this magnetosphere. And we'll have the opportunity to read book number 3. It's calmly, it's amazing. That's Alex is explaining step by step. We can understand better how things work, and the movement, and the way it works. But I would like to bring it, Alenka. After I read this in the book, I was just thinking about the way to make some exercise to see the. Normally we feel the aura, and we feel the emotion of the people as long as we want to be open to it, to help it or whatever. But during the sunrise and the sunset, if you give back to the sunlight and you watch your shadow and keep on looking around your shadow, it's very interesting. You can see your own aura from the physicality through the shadow. It's a very nice, I think, exercise that we can understand the size and the strength of at least the first layer or 2 layers, and the distance from ourselves. And it's just something that I made, and I thought, oh, I will say to the group that is a very interesting exercise to make to ourselves, just to check the area or the magnetosphere of our own shadow. During the sunset and the sunrise are best, because the energy of this time of the sun interacting with the earth is very powerful. You can see very many colors and many things. That's what I would like to add to this meeting. Thank you very much, Alex, Mark, and everyone for being here. Thank you.
Hello, Jefferson. Thank you very much. I want to say that you are actually on the right track there, because I'm really glad that you brought that up. It's an interesting way to for some of us to learn how to do that. From my understanding, and Alenka brought it up earlier, is to diverge from the focal point, to go to the extreme left or the right or of the eye. So what you want to look is at the periphery, at the extreme periphery. And so when you look at the sunrise and the sunset, just as it's coming over the horizon, that is the most extreme angle that the sunlight hits the earth. And so that is, I think, the explanation of what you're seeing there, Jefferson. I never thought of that, so I really thank you for bringing that up. It only makes sense also because when you're talking about the aura and the fact that it is part of the physicality, and yet it is an emotion that is emitted and is a inertia field that is created from the soul of the body. So the soul of the body is actually emitting that, and that is a product of its interaction with the soul, which is one of the reasons why it is emitting a color, because it is reflecting the emotion of the interaction between the soul of the body and the soul of the man. And it is on the periphery, on the extreme periphery of the vision, because as it comes more and more into the focal point of the vision, then it becomes more and more physical. So this is a class A explanation that you've brought up, Jefferson, of why only a few people at this point in time have the capability of seeing an aura. And it seems like a very special skill, yet all of us have this skill. So it is cultivated. And they didn't specifically go out to cultivate it. They just inherited and accepted it. And this is, the rest of us have rejected it based on, you know, our upbringing and our social environment and all the other things, along with denial and all the things that Alenka was talking about. So I'm just absolutely amazed in how this conversation has dovetailed together. And I want to thank everybody for allowing me to continue with this presentation. And I really want to thank you for all your contributions, because it's really very, very powerful. Over to you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's take 2 minutes and we will elevate Diane and give her the energy she needs. For those who joined us later on, there was a message from Diane's daughter, Melissa. Hi, guys. I'm Diane Smith's daughter. Ray wants me to let you know Diane won't be with us for a while. She has had a stroke and is in the ICU at Penticton Regional Hospital. Please let Rick know. I forwarded this message already to Rick. She won't be here Monday or Tuesday. Please send her love and good energies. Ray's listening as usual. Blessed be. So let's take 2 minutes and give from our souls to Diane, that she can, her soul can take whatever energies if needed, whatever she needs, if she needs it, and just elevate her condition. So let's start now for 2 minutes. Thank you. And thank you all for giving love and energies to Diane to use as her soul deems necessary, or if needed. The energies are there, Diane, and hope we see you very soon. Thank you, everyone. Anyone else have anything else before we close? I just want to say, may you be proud of the work you do, and that work is going to be increasing, the person you are, and the difference you make in this world of creation and our position in the universe right now. And again, just because the others aren't here, we're just sort of the forerunners. We just understood a little bit more before the others, but as we learn and gather more of this, they'll all be taught the same. And I can see the interest continues to grow in this understanding of the creation and the creator. So thank you all. I think I will play Alex's video on volunteering and then the final disclaimer. The Brazilians created it. Alex, do you want to give us a little history on this video, if you could? Keep the KAKT Foundation free for humanity. Anything you want to say on this regard, in this regard?
Well, it just reflects how well organized the Brazilian community is, because this was on their own inspiration, and they were very kind to ask me to contribute the English part, and you know, it was a wonderful opportunity. So, but it has to do with the organization and the energy coming from the Brazilian community.
Very good. So this is part of the reason and the understanding why some of these things in the shop cost money in the store, or the sessions and so on. But I think Alex and then Mr. Kesh will explain a little bit more. I'll play the final disclaimer after that. Again, the private classes are starting tomorrow. You may want to look at the schedule, but I think the orientation is on Tuesday. And of course, Tuesday, we also have the One Planet, One Nation, One Race in the public Zoom room. You're welcome to join. Wednesday is the reactor group, which continues on after 7 and so many years. Thank you, Rick Kremen. And also the Knowledge Seekers Workshop on Friday, the Brazilian teaching on Knowledge Seekers Workshop on Thursday, the Brazilian teaching on Friday. And there's many, if you look in the schedule or look on the social medias, there are many different organizations from the Bangladesh to the African team to the Spanish team and the rest, all through Europe, Italy, and so on and so forth. Even the Russians have a knowledge-seeking group there as well. So you can see those and you can join the public meetings. You're all invited since they're public. And hopefully we see you in about a week or so for another meeting here with the KAKT American Knowledge Team. Thank you for being here and thank you for bringing the change. We're all part of bringing the change. So thank you all. And thank you, Jefferson, for reminding us of Diane.